start the meeting if you would like to get ready. I'd like to hear the echoing's gone. Firstly, I'll just introduce our council members. We have Councillor Braden Mann, Councillor Nick McKenzie, Councillor Burns, Councillor David Kemp, and Councillor Marilyn Henderson. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to explain to council members to be reminded of your obligations of conflicts of interest, and if any conflict of interest occurs that is within an agenda item, could you please remember to fill out the relevant information after that has gone through. We will now stand for acknowledgement of country, diversity commitment, service acknowledgement and prayer.
The City of Victor Harbor acknowledges the Ramangiri and Ngarrindjeri people, the traditional custodians of the land and surrounding waters where we live and work. We acknowledge their deep spiritual connection to country and pay our respects to elders past, present and those still emerging. This respect is extended to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across Australia. The City of Victor Harbor is committed to diversity, equity and inclusion. We respect people of all ages, abilities, genders, sexualities, religions, beliefs, cultures and backgrounds.
We recognise the brave individuals who have served and continue to serve our nation. We remember those who have lost their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice to our country.
Almighty God, we ask you to bless this council and allow it to be an agent of change to the people of this city and beyond. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the honouring of your name and the welfare of the people whom it serves. Amen.
Tonight we have two apologies, one being Councillor Schofield and Mayor Maura Jenkins. We have no adjourned items this evening. Now we move on to minutes of the previous meetings, and the first one is 5.1. That is for the ordinary council meeting on the 27th of April 2026, and this is to confirm that they are a true and accurate record of that particular meeting. So do I have a mover for that, please?
Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you. A second?
Councillor Henderson.
Okay. No debate on that. So all those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we have minutes of the special council meeting held on the 30th of April 2026. We'd like to move that this is a true and accurate record of that particular meeting. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Kemp.
And a seconder?
Councillor Mann.
All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we have 5.3, which was a special council meeting held on May 6th, 2026. And do I have a mover and a seconder for the motion?
Councillor Henderson.
A seconder?
Councillor Mann.
Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we're moving on to deputations, and we have two deputations this evening. And the first one is from Business Victor Harbor. So if the Business Victor Harbor representatives step forward, that would be terrific. You have 10 minutes to present, and that does include questions that you would like to allow the council members to answer. So bear that in mind.
We're on. Good evening. I'm Rhys Adams, General Manager of Business Victor Harbor, and we've got next to me Kirsten Pittman, the President, and Michael Schubert, Vice President. So on behalf of Business Victor Harbor and the broader local business community, thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. So tonight's proposal is fundamentally about whether an adjustment of a small policy setting can help strengthen the vibrancy and the visitation and the broader economic activity of our city. So tonight, Business Victor Harbor is recommending that Council investigate a measured 12 to 24-month activation incentive trial related to waiving outdoor dining and fixed location street trading fees. Importantly, Business Victor Harbor is not asking Council to waive fees or adopt permanent policy change tonight. We're asking you to investigate whether a carefully measured pilot program would generate greater public value than the revenue currently collected. Oh, that works. So the core question is, does a more active, engaging and vibrant town centre create more value than the permit revenue currently collected? And we would assert that based on our research, it certainly does. And outdoor dining and carefully managed street activation are increasingly being viewed nationally as placemaking infrastructure, tourism assets and economic development tools. So this is not a rescue package. It's not about waiving fees just for the sake of it. It's an economic activation policy. So we know Victor Harbour's a visitor economy. It's not a generic suburban centre. It's a tourism-dependent regional economy. Our streetscape, the atmosphere and the activation directly influence the visitors' behaviour, their dwell time and, of course, their discretionary spending. So the stats we see up here, this is from council published data that shows us 1.2 million visitors annually, spend around $163 million and support hundreds of local jobs. So these aren't exactly new facts, but it's the atmosphere that becomes part of the product. So how do we leverage that and expand on that for the net benefit of everyone? And the evidence is clear. The economic benefits are real. We've selected a few examples up here to show you, but there are many more. I think up to 14 or 15 councils across Australia have trialled this with evidence that's remarkably consistent. And Adelaide City Council is currently looking at the same sort of thing as well. They commissioned a report earlier in the year, which was delivered in April, that makes similar recommendations that we're proposing tonight. So the trend nationally is toward lower friction activation models. So some important clarifications from us. So we still strongly support accessibility, pedestrian safety, responsible regulation. This proposal does not remove permits or compliance systems or enforcement powers. Council's regulatory framework would remain fully operational. It's also specifically not for mobile food vendors or transit operators or food trucks. The proposal is intended for fixed location, rate paying brick and mortar businesses that continue to the year-round activation of the city. So to roll this out, we're proposing a structured and measured trial, facilitating engagement. We can track it, we can collect data. If it doesn't work, it's reversible, but it represents a low-risk trial with potentially very significant upside for activation and vibrancy. So tonight, BVH is respectfully asking Council to investigate this as an economic activation opportunity. Importantly, Business Victor Harbor is not asking Council to waive fees tonight. We are asking Council to request administration prepare a formal report so we can quantify the current revenue derived from these permits, the scale of the potential financial exposure as a result of waiving them, and then the potential activation, tourism and economic outcomes that would be as a result of this. So in that report, we're asking council to investigate a 12 to 24-month activation pilot involving outdoor dining permit fees and selected street trader permit fees. Again, supporting this report tonight does not commit council to permanently changing policy. So, thank you for accepting our request to present tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to represent our business community, and we believe this proposal represents an evidence-based opportunity for investment in local economic activation. So, again, the question is not whether Victor Harbor can afford to support activation, it's whether it can afford not to. So thank you and welcome any questions.
Thank you. Council members, if you could indicate to me if you'd like to pose a question.
Councillor Anderson.
Go ahead.
Man.
Councillor Burns after that.
I'm interested in the data you're going to be collecting. What exactly is that data? Is it number of people, number of diners, dining outdoors? Is it increased income to those businesses? And how will you separate that data off from, for example, indoor dining? That doesn't sound a very easy task to me. How are you going to separate the increased attraction? How are you going to measure that?
In the submission, it was a lot, the pages in what you received was a lot more than what we put up on the screen, but it pulls apart exactly how many more staff hours were included because of the increased table numbers, how many more seats there were that could be included in shops that have a larger outdoor area as opposed to a smaller one. It talks about dwell times. Often, if you're sitting having a coffee for half an hour outside, you're looking around at other retail businesses. So it's looking at an uptick in the per person spend, not necessarily per person dining spend. It's the overall spending patterns of people visiting the area. So yeah, the paperwork in the detail of that paperwork shows you what it is that they've researched and collected data on from the other councils.
Good. If I can just follow up on that, who specifically is collecting that data? Is the people waiting on the tables or the business owners? I'm just interested in how the data is collected. Who's doing the collecting?
So,
it just sounds like it's adding to the workload.
So that data, as far as I'm aware, is collected from, and you're going to forgive me for the name, I've forgotten it again. It's the cash visa thing that you get.
Spend map.
Thank you. Spend map. Spend map. You can pull that stuff out of. I'm so sorry. I can never remember the name of that thing, but it's something that's accessible. I feel like council has access to that. Am I right? No.
Yeah, Regional Development Australia subscribes and we have access to that sort of data.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in and the submission. I think it's an excellent idea. Just two quick questions. I guess maybe in the context of Nino's, for example, I'm just wondering how many tables currently sit out and then whether there would be likely more tables out there if council was to look at this trial, and if so, how many more?
I was trying to be very specifically not here for Nino's, but I
just
guess
an
it makes
example
sense
of
to look at it from
one,
that specific.
Yeah, just in terms of one business. If,
Yeah.
You know,
so
if we
so
multiply
effectively, Nino's has two council charges. So there's two units that have two different council rates applied. We are charged per chair, per table, per planter box and per umbrella. We don't have umbrellas anymore, but that you get the general gist. So our outdoor dining permit for what we currently have is $1,300 or $1,400 a year. On top of that, you pay the insurance premium for that area. You maintain it, you staff it, you clean it, you buy the chairs, tables and replacements and all of that sort of stuff included with it. So if there was no fee waived, it would make more sense to try and activate that area more. Now, the specific challenge for Nino's is that a quarter of their outdoor space is taken up by a walkway, the path across. So it may not necessarily impact me. I may be able to add a few more, but it's more about those small businesses that currently don't activate their space, the subways and those
got
kind of
1
areas in
minute
the
to
main
go.
street. Sorry,
A minute. Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that. The other quick question I had was around, because Business Victor Harbour already has another budget submission in for this coming year around the festoon lights in the northern end. Our budget is looking to be very, very tight, where we're sort of looking at no extras, so to speak, or additions. If there was either the trial or for the festoon lights to get up, which would be the priority for Business Victor Harbour for the next financial year?
I'll keep talking. I would expect both would be equally as important. Sorry, I'm not making that decision for you, but also we don't have the details on how much that actually gives you in revenue either. So yeah, it's a bit tricky from our perspective.
Yep, thank you.
What is that ding? Is that me?
I think Councillor Burns had a question, and unless someone's got anything burning after that, we'll make that the last question, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Two things very quickly. One, I've seen this work really well in New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland. So I think doing a trial will certainly be worthwhile exercise to certainly investigate the options. The other question was, what areas of Victor were you proposing the trial to be in? I'm assuming Ocean Street, that area, but are there other areas that you were thinking of as well?
I think it encapsulates the Main Street precinct. So Ocean Street, sort of around to the Causeway Cafe, to sort of where the Larder Kitchen is, and back around that downtown area, and the Heritage Precinct.
Yeah. I don't want to keep jumping in, but I would suggest that a citywide trial would be more sensible, because you've also got the industrial area that's talking about A-frames and outdoor stuff and all of that sort of stuff. So it's not just about the centre of Victor. Yeah.
Thank you for your deputation this evening, and we will be having another budget briefing session on Monday, and we can discuss it further at that briefing session. Next, we have a deputation from Terry Scolari, I think. Scolari, sorry about the pronunciation. If you'd like to step forward, and we have a motion that will be brought forward after this particular deputation as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and councillors, for opportunity to speak. This is speaking towards motion 18.1, which is the motion being put tonight. My name is Terry Scolari. I'm a ratepayer, business owner and resident in Strathalbyn. This deputation is being done purely for transparency, as this identical motion has already been put to Alex Council on the 18th of May and Yank Council on the 19th of May. The motion at both these meetings was carried in favour unanimously. We need to remember the motion tonight is only asking council admin to discuss and provide advice on the scope needed in an independent report to be commissioned. Commissioning the external report and how it will be paid for will be decided at a future council meeting. I'd like to speak a little bit to the officer commentary that came out with the agenda tonight. These comments to me are a little bit confusing and in the main irrelevant, as they don't speak to the motion that's being put tonight. Of the 26 examples of collaboration provided, only 2 relate to back office admin costs. Admin in this fleet, procurement, accounts, HR, IR, payroll and IT. The one example was relating to fleet, which does speak to this motion. However, in saying that, only 4 items out of approximately 200 are presently shared, which just goes to show how ad hoc, small and unstructured present arrangements are. 24 of the 26 examples relate to ratepayer services, which are outside the scope of this motion. Admin comments then bring up something called the Fleurieu Futures Report, Stage 1 and 2 from 14 years ago. This also came up at Alex and Yank council meetings. When researching the Fleurieu Futures Report, it reveals that it comprised of a 7-point plan by Yank, Victor and Alex that they looked at back in 2012. Only one category, and that was governance of the 7, touched on anything to do with this motion tonight about aggregation of back office services. I did find Fleurieu Futures update report was included in the November 2020 agenda papers for Victor Council, and they are also in the agenda papers tonight. From reading this report, no formal outcome was reached and nothing mentions the aggregation possibilities of back office functions such as the fleet procurement, accounts, HR, IR, payroll and IT. Both Alex and Yank Council acknowledged the work done around Fleurieu Futures. However, both councils agreed that the work was outdated and the outcomes were ad hoc and needed to be formalised. This motion would start that process. The admin comments from Alex also and Victor both stated that they thought the motion effectively calls for a repeat and a significant expansion of the work performed as part of the Fleurieu Futures. As over 90% of the initiatives referred in the admin comments are not relevant to the motion being put tonight, there is not a repeat of any previous work undertaken in the Fleurieu Futures study. From my research, the Fleurieu Futures project was put in the bottom drawer in 2020. With the rate of change occurring in workplace operations and technology being greater than it's ever been, any study done more than 2 to 3 years ago is old and would be considered outdated. Ratepayer service costs and back office council costs are 2 distinct separate cost centres of a different structure and should be treated as such. Admin comments also suggest that this motion be deferred until after the local government elections and for budgetary reasons. This again is a deflection away from the motion. This motion does not require a budget line item in the 26-27 budget, nor is it affected by the local government elections, as council admin staff and CEOs will remain the same during this process. It is understood that internal job protection must be a natural thought by council staff when looking at this aggregation of back office costs, and it may be part of the reason for this continual deflection by the council executives when asked to look at savings and costs in their own houses behind the front door. As stated earlier, this motion tonight is only asking council admin to discuss and provide advice on the scope needed in the report to be commissioned. Commissioning the independent report will be decided at a future meeting. Councils can't keep on asking ratepayers for more money if they aren't prepared to look at savings behind their own front door. Thank you.
Do we have any elected members who would like to ask questions? And if so, could you announce your name and
Councillor Mackenzie.
go ahead?
Thank you for presenting tonight. I just wanted to get a bit of a further understanding on your thoughts around this. Obviously, you've mentioned the back office side of things, but is there, I guess, another thought or underlying process of merging the councils together? Is that sort of what your end goal would be through this process, or is it just purely administration back end, sharing the services?
To me, the aggregation of back in a previous life of mine in the financial services area, I was involved with aggregation in the mutual banking sector, credit unions back then. We had 40 to 50 on different aggregated services from IR, HR, accounting, IT. It just went on, and we wouldn't have survived without that. We all had our services in the front, outside the front door that we all offered differently because we all had different communities and different customers. But behind the front door, we're all doing the same thing. You know, so there was no, so the aggregation saved money then. But the question now is, we just wanted to ask the question again, can it save money now? There might be some that may not provide any savings, but there could be areas that, you know, do provide. But every time I ask, and I've been doing this for 4 years now at Alex, from the previous CEO to this CEO, whenever I ask the question publicly, all the ratepayer collaboration comes out and not the back office. But they're 2 different worlds and 2 different planets, and they should be treated that way, because what you do to run your house behind the front door is way different to, you know, waste management, planning services and all the things that you need to do for ratepayers. So to me, why not lead the horse and get it done instead of being dragged through the hedge backwards? Because LGA have said publicly in February in an interview with ABC that this is the only way they can see smaller councils surviving. I know it's on the state agenda coming up this year to say, you know, guys, we've got to do it. So to me, lead the way and make this a positive story instead of, you know, being dragged through it and not control it.
Councillor Kemp.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Terry, for your deputation. Just an interesting thing. Any thoughts on your past experience on timelines? How long do you think this would take, whether if this council proves it's not, for the three councils to get a 12 months, 18 months? Because it could drag on for years, you know, this process.
It'll take a while, and if we don't start it, it'll never get finished.
Right.
I mean, all of a sudden, the Fluoro Futures report's being pulled out of the bottom drawer, which that was, what, 12, 14 years ago when it got started. But if you look at a report to be commissioned, that'll have to go in next year's budget because it won't happen this year. But if we got, you know, if the admin scope what was needed in a report, that would come in this budget year, and then the money for the report would come in the following year. How that is split up under the aggregation models I've been, you might do it on number of ratepayers in reasons and divide the overall cost. You know, there's got to be a way of sharing it. And I don't know where or why, but Yankalilla said at their meeting last week, there's still money sitting in a fund somewhere for this. And they mentioned like 25,000. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I will allow the CEO to correct a couple of points there just before we get going.
Yeah, that's not just, I'm only repeating what.
Yeah, and just the final question is, I mean, it would be nice to get this achieved, you know, before the next term of council in 4 years' time in around 2029.
Yeah.
So I think 4 years should be enough to provide enough timelines, but certainly could be implemented in the new term then, around the 29, 30. But yeah, certainly the 4 years of investigation and reports, I guess, will be a sufficient time in that respect.
You would hope so.
You would hope so, or even sooner. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions from elected members?
Good. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
For your deputation, it's great to have you here this evening. And now we'll move on to 18.1, which is a motion that's been brought to us by Councillor Burns. So Councillor Burns, if you would like to propose your motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll read out the motion. It's in 3 parts, and it should be up on the screen. So that council, subject to support being given by District Council of Yankalilla and the Alexandrina Council, resolves to request administration provide advice to council members on the scope of commissioning an independent report to investigate the savings or otherwise to be had if back office administration of the 3 councils were to be aggregated to one provider of the service. The administration services that could be included in the report could potentially be, but not limited to, fleet services, procurement, accounts, HR, and in IR, industrial relations, payroll, web and social media communication, and information technology services. That council, subject to consideration of the above, request the Mayor and CEO convene a meeting with the District Council of Yankalilla and Alexandrina Council to discuss the merits of preparing a scope for such a report to be commissioned that would provide further advice to council members of all 3 councils as to the merit of such an initiative. And with the Deputy Mayor's permission, I'll talk to the motion if I could. Or
we need a seconder first,
Yep.
please.
Councillor Kemp.
Okay. Councillor Burns, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate the comprehensive overview of existing collaboration across councils, and it clearly shows that there's a strong history of working together regionally. However, I think it's important to be very clear about what this motion is actually proposing. This motion is not about frontline services, community programs, or regional governance structures. It is specifically about back office administration functions and whether there are efficiencies that could be realised in those areas. The examples provided in the commentary are useful, but they are largely related to Council's broader service delivery and collaboration, which is quite different in nature from the internal administration functions outlined in the motion before you. So the question before us isn't whether we're already collaborating. We clearly do. The question is whether it's worth undertaking an independent assessment of back-end service consolidation, particularly given the financial pressures on this council, which we will be discussing later in tonight's agenda. I think it's reasonable and responsible for us to properly test whether there are efficiencies available in areas that do not directly impact frontline services. Importantly, both Alexandrina Council and Yankalilla councils have already considered similar motions and unanimously supported progressing this independent assessment. That demonstrates there's a shared regional interest in exploring these opportunities, and it strengthens the case for us to be part of that discussion. This motion does not commit council to any structural change. It simply seeks independent advice so council can make a fully informed decision. For these reasons, I would encourage members to support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Kemp, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think it's a good initiative, a good motion in the sense that, you know, due to our financial situation in Australia and continuing with the world conflicts that's happening around the world, I think it's an opportunity to look at how we can find efficiencies across all councils. There are synergies between councils, which I think need to be explored, which can actually bring some savings and some, as I said before, efficiencies to our ratepayers as well. So this may lead to other things in the future in frontline services, but I guess we could do the first one first, which is do the back room and look at how that looks. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else that would like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Henderson, I have a question to the CEO. Even though there's no immediate budget requirement, there would be a budget requirement for the cost of an independent report into the future, commissioning that. Do you have any idea what that cost might be? No idea at all.
No, that would be through the chair. My apologies. It would basically be dependent on the scope that the members are wanting to look at. So, yeah, I wouldn't have a figure off the top of my head.
Councillor Mann.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, no, everyone knows I love a creative motion, and Councillor Burns, I take my hat off. It is a creative approach, and as I understand it, it's really about combining all the back office administrations of the three councils into one. And what the deputation's made very clear of is it's not about amalgamation or anything like that. It's still keeping everything three completely separate. I guess my views of it, though, is it takes a very, I would somewhat say, overly simplistic understanding of how a council works and the connection between administration and what is referred to as the back office. There's a number of services in there that they've said could be identified as rolling in as one, but I think it's a bit too simplistic to say that those back office and administration things such as IT, web, social media comms, procurement accounts, all of those things sit independently to the chambers. Majority and a significant amount of the work all those administration services are doing is a direct result of what happens here in the chamber. It's the decisions we make, it's providing the reports, there's a significant amount of work they're doing directly off of whichever way we want to take them. And I think the logistics of having three different councils all telling the one people, here's the different ways we're going, and we're wanting to go this way, that council's going this way, we're going this way. I think I don't see how that would work. I think, we know you can't serve two masters, and I don't know how you would serve three in this instance. And I think I appreciate the other councils have supported this, but we have to also consider we're acting for the residents of Victor Harbor as we're currently elected. And I think the other councils are in a very different financial position than our council as well. We have worked very hard for a long amount of time to put ourselves in a position where we can not only deliver the services we've been delivering and pick up the services that other councils don't want to deliver or they've stopped or pulled out of, but also to provide regional facilities that will benefit all the residents across the South Coast. So I think that puts us in a bit more of a driver's seat, so to speak, around what is the best deal for our residents and the broader South Coast. And I know you've made it clear that it's not about amalgamation, but I think we really should be considering strategically, if we're going to look at this, what a future amalgamation of the councils could look like. Because what's happening more and more, and we've seen it in the chamber, is the state government, the federal government, private developers, everyone's coming off, and because we're small and fractured, they can divide and conquer. Where if we want to future-proof the South Coast, because the same problems are happening here that are happening in Port Elliot, Middleton, Goolwa, Yank, we need to be on the same page. And I don't see how that happens when you have three different heads going in different directions. I think there is merit to exploring amalgamation, whatever that may look like or whatever that timeframe may be. So I'm not in favour of this motion because it doesn't deal with that. I would be happy to put up a motion without notice, inviting in the new council, because I think we've got enough to deal with this year with everything else, for the new councils to invite the others to look at, okay, let's look at everything from cost savings to amalgamations and keep that on the table.
Councilman, have to wrap it up now.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was a minute warning.
Yeah, no. So
30 seconds, sorry.
right.
Yeah, so that's all I have to say on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Quinton,
Go ahead.
can I just ask administration just for some further commentary around this motion? Reading the commentary, it looks like there is already a lot of examples of the collaboration occurring, and it also looks like there's a history of a report being commissioned. So whilst I like the idea here, it feels like we're probably doing something that doesn't need, has already been done and is currently occurring, the results of that report. So could I just ask just for some clarification around that, please?
Through the Deputy Mayor, Mr. Scolari referenced the Florio Futures report, which actually was in 2017, was completed, so not 14 years ago, 9. The intent of that was to look at either amalgamation, back-end office or shared resources. And yes, it has taken some time to enact, but the councils have looked at back-end. We actually tried to collaborate with the purchasing of Technology One corporate system with the 3 councils. Alexandrina did participate in that, although they started a little bit sooner but have delivered a little bit later. But we have shared in regards to the implementation of that system with the intent of being able to do more from the back end when we have the same corporate system. Unfortunately, Yankalilla pulled out of that and they went with a different system, which is Civica. So 2020 was the time when all 3 were looking at a new corporate system, which would have really helped streamline that. So it has been and was the intent of that document, but it's not to say there isn't more work to do, and definitely, you know, the opportunities to look at some of those back ends, but those things that can be resourced. But at the moment, we now have one of the councils who have recently purchased a completely different corporate system. Again, not saying that you can't do back ends with 2 different corporate systems. But yeah, the Florio Futures report, which was commissioned through grant funding, there isn't a pool of funds that's sitting there remaining. It was all spent. It was a grant from the Local Government Association to test case the exact examples of which have been shared in Councillor Burns, or the motion that was prepared for all 3 councils to submit.
Anyone else that would like to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Burns, if you'd like to close the debate.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge the questions that have been asked and the concerns, and I understand that. Again, I think that getting an investigation being done will assist this council and certainly the next council in understanding what is possible, and that may extend into things like amalgamation. But we already are doing some sharing, but it's fragmented. And I think what this does is provide some structured information back as to what is possible, where there may be some challenges, so that elected members have more accurate information to assist in their planning going forward. So anyway, I put the motion to the floor and hopefully people will support it.
Now we put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against?
Vision,
That-
please.
That has been lost, and we'll call a division. So all those in favour, could you please stand?
Those in favour, Councillor Burns and Councillor Kemp.
Those against?
Those against, Councillor Mann, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Quinton and Councillor Henderson.
Motion's been lost. Next is questions from the galley, which we have none. We have no petitions this evening. Now we're moving to outstanding resolutions, and we need to, excuse me, receive and note the outstanding resolutions report for May. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson.
Seconder,
Councillor Mann.
any questions about that? If not, we'll put Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just that, again, to thank the CEO. It was another good report and quite detailed with dates and so forth, which we had requested previously. And again, it's very helpful. Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we move on to the reviewed Prudential policy, and we're looking to adopt that, I assume. Do I have a mover for that, please?
Councillor Mann.
Seconder?
Councillor Henderson.
Would either of you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burns?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to propose some amendments to the proposed motion before us, if that's possible.
Could you please let us know what your amendments may be?
Certainly.
Councillor Burns, could you read your amendment out, please?
Certainly, thank you. That Council adopt the reviewed Prudential management policy as provided as attachment 2, subject to the following amendments. 1, under the statutory trigger clarification, to insert a clause saying a Prudential report must be obtained and considered where the requirement of section 48(1) of the Local Government Act 1999 are met, regardless of any risk-based or proportional assessment. 2, insert a clause under risk-based approach clarification. A risk-based approach may determine the extent of additional analysis undertaken, but must not reduce the minimum statutory requirements for a Prudential report or consideration of prudential issues under section 48. 3, under retrospective threshold safeguards, insert a clause where a project exceeds Prudential reporting thresholds after commencement. Council must not make further material financial or contractual commitments until a Prudential report has been obtained and considered by Council. 4, under minimum financial assessment requirements, insert the clause requiring that all Prudential reports include, at a minimum, whole of life costs, revenue projections where applicable, identification of financial risks, short and long-term impact on Council's financial position, key assumptions underpinning the analysis, and lastly, under the confidentiality safeguards, insert a clause, any confidentiality provisions must not restrict Council's access to or consideration of the full financial viability and risk assessment of the project.
I just make you aware that that is a significant amendment to the policy, and that it would have been beneficial to alert councillors of such a significant change. I'll put it to the council to see if they would like to include those.
Councillor
through-
Henderson, I would like to adjourn this so we've got time to consider those changes.
I'd agree.
Second that.
All right, it's a formal motion from Marilyn, Councillor Henderson.
Seconded by Councillor Quinton.
So there's no debate. So all those,
Can I just state that the formal motion is that the debate on this matter be adjourned to enable elected members to consider any further additions to the policy, and that it be brought back to the June council meeting. Just an adjournment needs a reason and a date to return. If you're happy with that.
put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. We've got 2 items interchange. We've got the public interest disclosure policy. So I'll deal with that one first, in that we are going to revoke the previous public interest disclosure policy, and now we have a public interest disclosure process instead of a policy, as the Act suffices to cover a policy which we don't need anymore. So do we have a mover for that?
Councillor Mann.
And do we have a seconder?
Councillor Henderson.
Any debate? Would you like to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak to the debate? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I also had some amendments for this, and I'm happy that this, rather than go through each one, I'll give a copy to the CEO, send with all my proposed amendments electronically to the CEO, but move a motion that this also gets adjourned to the June meeting, so elected members can have some time to consider those amendments, if that's satisfactory.
We need a seconder for your motion to adjourn.
Councillor Kemp.
So just to clarify that the debate on this matter be adjourned to enable council members to consider any further amendments to the procedure, and that the procedure be presented back to the June ordinary council meeting.
To the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That has been carried. Thank you. Next, we will move on to the other component of the recommendation, and that is for the.
Yeah, so it's for the fraud, corruption, misconduct and maladministration prevention policy. Can I also just remind members to say your name, because Councillor Schiller can't see you with your hand up. I will try and remind her, but you need to say your name. Thank you.
So do we have a mover for that recommendation?
Councillor Henderson.
A seconder?
Councillor Mackenzie.
Would either of you like to speak to that debate?
No, thanks.
Anyone else that would like to speak to it? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Moving to 9.4, which is the Treasury Management Policy. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Mann.
A seconder?
Councillor Mackenzie.
Would you like to speak to the debate?
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
Anyone else that would like to speak to the debate? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Now, moving on to the Local Government Association Ordinary General Meeting that's occurring on the 29th of May. And we have a big long, well, not too big a long list, but we have a list of motions there. So I will put them on block, but if anyone has anything they're not, that they want to pull out, let me know right now.
Councillor Stewart Burns.
Okay, so how? What's
1B, I'd like to see certainly recommendation 1 separated. The others can be on block, is fine.
Can I just clarify, Councillor Burns, if you're looking at the agendas, there's 7.1, 7.2, 9.1 and 9.2.
Sorry, I was up to 9.6, wrong one. Apologies. Sorry.
Okay, so no amendments to 9.5, Local Government Association Ordinary General Meeting?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
would we have a mover and a seconder for that, please?
Councillor Henderson, I'll move.
Thank you. Seconder? Would someone else like to
Councillor
second?
Mann.
Councillor Mann. Any debate on the issue? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Now we're on 9.6, which is the 2026 National General Assembly. And the first recommendation is to First recommendation is to send council to Moira Jenkins to the National General Assembly, and that there will be a budget implication of $3,500. So do we have a mover for that?
Councillor Henderson moving that.
A seconder?
Councillor Mann.
Any debate from either of you? Any debate from anyone else?
Councillor Burns. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm happy with all the proposed motions except for 1B. I'm just concerned that...
Councillor Burns, this is... Yep, okay.
It's okay. Just concerned that this should be, as it's an annual assembly, it should have been budgeted in. There should already be funds for the mayor to attend these types of functions. I think it's appropriate she attends. It's just that I'm concerned that it's increasing the operational budget. And if it hasn't been provisioned, surely we can find some costs somewhere to accommodate this. I know it's a small amount, but every increase on operational budget when we're running such a large deficit concerns me. That's all.
Is anyone else like to speak to the debate? If not, I will close the debate. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Recommendation 2 and 3 to follow. So could I have a mover and a seconder?
Councillor Mann.
Can you please clarify which part of 3? Are you doing just 2 or 3?
I'm happy to do on block.
Are you able to clarify which one you would prefer?
Oh, yes. In part 3, we have the option of bringing this back to a special council meeting to look at the what needs to be voted on, or we can set up a panel made up of the CEO, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor to guide how we will vote on those particular items.
I'm generally happy with part B as opposed to having that special meeting for those, again, advocacy positions. I'm quite comfortable that at a federal level, the CEO, Mayor and Deputy Mayor will be able to put forward what the community would be supportive of, noting what generally comes to those National General Assembly meetings. So I'm more than comfortable with that.
I'm happy to second that.
No debate at all. Councillor Burns, go ahead.
Burns, I have concerns. I would have preferred 3A rather than 3B. I think it's important that elected members get to consider motions that are being put up representing the City of Victor Harbor. Otherwise, why have a council?
Any further debate?
Councillor
Councillor
Kemp.
Go ahead.
Sorry, your microphone's not on.
Thank you. I agree with the aspect that we should, as elected members, understand what's been presented on our behalf and on behalf of our community. So we need to be across what's going up to the national body. So I think I won't be supporting 3B.
Any further debate? If not, we will close the debate. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you.
A division, please.
Call a division. All those in favour, could you please stand?
Those in favour, Councillor Mann, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Quinton and Councillor Henderson.
Those against?
Those against is Councillor Burns and Councillor Kemp.
That's been carried. Item number. We're now up to 9.7, which is the March budget review, and we're looking to endorse that budget review. So do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Quinton, thank you. A seconder?
Councillor Mann.
Would you like to speak to it at all? No. Anyone else that would like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Burns.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In reading the report, the review, there were certainly some positive elements in the financial update, which I was very pleased with. The reported reduction in operating deficit and improvements in key financial ratios is certainly welcomed, and it's encouraging to see some cost control and reduced borrowings in the short term. I'm supportive of noting the review, but I do think we need to clearly understand the underlying position. It appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding, that a significant portion of the financial improvement is being driven by timing changes rather than underlying financial improvements. There seems to be a large amount of deferrals of expenditure rather than savings and capital works being pushed into future years as work in progress. So I have three questions. One is, what is the underlying operating position once deferred expenditure is taken into account? Two, if those deferred capital projects proceed next year, what's the likely impact on borrowings and interest costs? And three, what is the plan to return to a sustainable operating position? Thank you.
Thank you, through the Deputy Mayor. So in terms of the underlying financial position, the budgeted financial statements are put together to show what the position will look like at the 30th of June. That is our underlying financial position as a forecast. In terms of the deferrals that have occurred, there are a number of capital items that have been identified that will be work in progress at the 30th of June, and they are currently being built into the draft 26-27 budget, which will come back to a council workshop hopefully in the next week or so. And in terms of the reduction in operating, again, there's a number of items there. Some are savings, some are increased income, but there's also the $1 million deferral for the contribution to the precinct, which is a timing issue. So that has been moved out as it's unlikely to happen before the 30th of June, even though we're progressing through that. And sorry, I couldn't remember your third question.
It was mainly around what's the likely impact on borrowings and interest costs if the deferred capital projects proceed next year. And I'm not talking about work in progress, I'm talking about deferred ones.
Yep. So in terms of the deferred, we're probably, in terms of the draft 26-27 budget, we're looking at needing to draw down on about $3.5 million worth of borrowings to accommodate those additional projects that are being carried forward from a capital point of view. And in terms of financial sustainability, the long-term financial plan has us basically sitting with a similar amount in it for 26-27 and projects us coming back into a surplus position in around year 3 or 4. I can't remember off the top of my head. But so that's the plan that sets out how we get back to a break-even position, allowing for repayments of loans going forward.
And a lot of those figures hopefully will be in the Monday's budget briefing.
That's correct.
After?
Yep.
Any other members that would like to speak to the debate?
Councillor Kemp,
Go ahead.
just on the capital of the $2.8 million, which will not be completed by the 30th of June, what type of projects are they? And is there any specific reason why they won't be completed?
Through the Deputy Mayor, so there is an attachment 2, which lists every single capital project, and through that it provides an idea or a summary sort of in terms of why excuse me, why those projects would be uncompleted. If there's particular questions about any of those projects, I'll defer to Jodie, Director Environment, to answer those. Some are due to delays around council decisions impacting the design and the scope. There are others that were delayed due to decisions on location, change in scope, and I'm just looking through infrastructure requirements changing. So happy to take questions on individual projects, but the summaries are provided in that attachment.
Yeah, thank you for the summary, but I guess the printout on the hard copy is very small print. It's very hard to see, but I just wanted a summary, but thank you for that. The other one is on the operating budget. You spoke about the $1 million deferral on the sports precinct. Is that part of the $11.7 million that council will contribute to the project?
Through the Deputy Mayor, yes, it is. So that was one of the contributions of that total 11.7.
And the 1% in our rate rise for this current financial year, is that money is being deferred or is it being kept for other reasons?
So through the Deputy Mayor, the rates that have already been billed have essentially been billed. So those monies have been used to pay down borrowings to get us into a better position for when we go forward with the precinct.
Thank you.
Members that would like to speak to the motion? If not, we'll close that. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried. Thank you. Next, we have 9.8, which is our borrowings report. We're receiving and noting that report. So do I have a mover and a seconder?
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you.
Councillor McKenzie?
Would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thanks.
Anyone else that would like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Stewart Burns.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just two questions, if I can. Whilst I understand it's fairly normal council standard practice to use short-term borrowings to manage cash flows, question one is, can it be clarified why the cash advance borrowings has increased so significantly, and whether this is expected to be a one-off issue or an ongoing trend, as the risk profile is quite different in each case? And the second one is, to what extent is borrowing currently being used to manage timing of revenue collection rather than funding planned expenditure?
Kelly, you can go with that one.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor. So in terms of the CADs, we have a $10 million CAD that is used as a variable loan throughout the year, so we can manage cash flow and reduce interest expenses throughout the year. That facility is there. We look at it each year in terms of whether or not we should fix some of those amounts. We haven't had big drawings on that for quite a while, and so it hasn't been worth us putting any into a fixed term, and with the interest rates the way they are at the moment, I wouldn't suggest that was something we would do right now. But yes, we do look at whether or not we should fix some of those. It's high at the moment because we've had two extensions on our rates due dates, and so there's a little bit more drawn down on that at the moment because of those impacts. So with the rates coming up with the new deadline, I think it's the 22nd of June, we would be looking to have that paid down significantly before the end of financial year.
Councillor Kemp.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. On page 123, under investments, you've got a figure of $1.25 million in cash reserves on council deposits. But on your report on page 125 of the agenda, your council deposits, your figure here is 46,500. So there's a difference between 1.2 million and 45,000.
Kelly.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, you just need to scroll to the next page.
Oh, the next page.
Carries over, yeah. So there's about 6 different reserves that we have, and so the total of all of those reserves is the 1.25.
Thank you for that clarity and pointing me in the right direction. The other one is the cash advance debentures. You don't have any instalments or interest on the cash advance debentures, which is outstanding of about 3.7 million. So we don't pay anything down at any time. We don't pay regular down instalments, or we don't pay interest on that amount.
Through the Deputy Mayor, we do pay interest, so we would get a bill on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, depending on how we have it set up in the system at the time, where we would pay the interest that was applicable to the amount outstanding for the time it was outstanding. In terms of paying down the current principal, basically if we have any surplus funds in our operating bank account that is greater than a payroll, we pay down all the time. So we would be actually making deposits and withdrawals from those CADs on a weekly basis to minimise interest and to put money back in and pay off the principal as quick as possible.
So what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is it's very difficult to show a report that shows the interest that's been paid. And
we would be able to get it out of the system because we process it through the system as an interest component, and it would be sitting in our general ledger and our budget as actuals, but not on this particular report from the LGFA. They're basically just showing that that's the total. Because it's a CAD, we're not required to make principal repayments. If we didn't want to, we do, but the interest is actually invoiced depending on what's outstanding at the time the interest is generated.
Thank you.
Any further debate? If not, we will close the debate and put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. And next we move on to community and development, and the first one is 10.1, and this is regarding the cinema tenancy, and the recommendation is to allow us to go out to a more, if you want to, I'll get the CEO to read the recommendation.
So yes, the recommendation is that council endorse the implementation of a flexible activation model with respect to Victor Cinema tenancies, including short-term leasing and casual hire arrangements, and request that administration report back to council following an initial period of operation to assess utilisation, operational considerations, financial performance, and emerging long-term opportunities for tenancies.
Do I have a mover, please?
I'll move that recommendation.
A seconder?
Councillor Stewart Burns.
Councillor Marilyn Henderson, would you like to speak to the debate?
Just to say, I think this is a good approach given the, we've tried alternatives and this is just taking a new and different approach.
Councillor Burns?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I agree. I think there needs to be a degree of flexibility in looking at how those tenancies can be used, and unless we try this, we won't know.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we have the Arts and Culture Grants Program, and there is a big long list of recommendations, and I'm happy to pull any out that if anyone has any questions. If not, I'll put it up as on block. So do I have a mover to put it on block?
Deputy Mayor, I'm happy to put all 6 forward as a block.
And Deputy Mayor, Councillor Burns, I'm happy to support that.
Councillor Marilyn Henderson, would you like to speak to it at all?
As the chair of the Arts and Culture Advisory Group, I was part of assessing these applications. All very good. All of the information is there for the other members to have read. I think they speak for themselves. They're all very worthy of being supported by us in our arts and culture space.
Councillor Burns, would you like to speak to it at all?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I also support the intent of the Arts and Culture Grants Program. I was just pleased to see the number of applications coming in, but more importantly, I suppose, from my perspective, that the total allocation remains within the approved budget. So I'm supporting of it.
Councillor Mann.
Go ahead, Councillor Mann.
Yeah, just to declare probably a general conflict of interest, 2 of the people receiving the funds, Asa Newland and Luke Ridley, are people I sort of went to school with, knew growing up to young people. It's just a general conflict of interest, and I'll remain in the chamber and vote.
Any further debate to the motion? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. The next is 10.3, which is the Aged Care Act, and we're going to read that out. Let's take it read. I'll take that as read because there's a fair bit there. So do I have a mover and a seconder for that on block?
I will move that on block, Deputy Mayor.
Seconder?
And Councillor Burns, I would second that being moved on block as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to this?
No, thank you.
Councillor Burns?
No, I think the Act is quite explanatory, and administration and the LGA did a good summary for elected members, so it's fine.
Do I have anyone else who would like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Mann.
Go ahead, Councillor Mann.
Just some questions off the bat, if I may, Deputy Mayor.
Go ahead.
To administration. Now, thank you for the lengthy reports. Just it's good to get a few clarity on a few things in terms of, firstly, what additional duties and responsibilities will be put on our volunteers, if any?
If I may, through the Deputy Mayor, no additional duties. Obviously, they are all required to have their normal checks that they normally do, depending on the services that they are supporting. There's no additional duties as such.
Thank you. In terms of just how, in terms of some of the commentary, I was just wondering how, I guess, the volunteers driving the busloads of our elderly residents back and forth Victor Harbour Road, how that was sort of assessed as a lower risk or lower to medium.
Through the Deputy Mayor, I don't think the actual services would we say it's lower risk, but I think it's more in terms of the service it provides to our older generations as opposed to an aged care bed and providing services and medication and support within an aged care facility. Transport to and from their appointments is what's referred to as low risk. I'm not saying that the Adelaide to Victor Road is low risk or high risk, but that's not the assessment that's being made in that sense.
Yep, no, thank you. Further, if there are new councillors elected in November who do not want to be responsible persons and be personally liable for the up to $50,000 or $46,000 fine, are they able to opt out of being responsible persons?
Not to my knowledge, but I can take that question on notice because I'm looking at Leanne who's shaking her head, but no, I don't believe they can opt out.
Yep. Have we had written legal advice as to whether, in terms of that, responsible persons now applying to staff, administration, councillors as well, whether that is elected members and new members coming in November will be covered under the Local Government Act in terms of the statutory or waiver of liability, so to speak?
So in terms of provisions under Section 39 of the Local Government Act, you're still covered for civil liabilities as if you're acting in your role and responsibilities as an elected member, and collectively the council is indemnified for civil liabilities. But in terms of actual penalties and fines as such, if an individual member was to breach something and receive a fine or a penalty because the individual member undertook that risk, then possibly not. But I have received advice. I only received it just before this meeting. So my preference is in relation to F is that I will provide that back in writing to members, but you're still covered under the civil liabilities requirements as currently stands under 39 of the Local Government Act.
Thank you. If I could speak to it now, Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a really tough one, this one, because I guess for those who might not necessarily know the background, council for a long time now has been providing community transport services and in-home community support as well, and social inclusion programs. And effectively what happened as a result of the Royal Commission into Aged Care was that new legislation came in that put significant regulatory burdens on everyone working in the aged care space. Now, a lot of the aged care reforms and, or I guess the Royal Commission was around aged care homes, but councils have been swept up into that difficult situation. And now there is a very onerous, I would argue very onerous responsibility now put on local councils, so much so that many councils around Australia have pulled out of providing any aged care services. I read an ABC article recently was saying most of Victorian councils have pulled out. Many pulled out in 2024 prior to the legislation coming into effect. I know there's a number of South Australian councils who have also pulled out. I think City of Unley, I read, they stated in their statement, council determined that continuing to deliver CHSP services, which are Commonwealth Home Support Program services, presented ongoing financial, operational and regulatory risks that were not suitable over the long term. My worry is around, there seems to be a lot of holes in, I don't know if the federal government and the commission know exactly how this is going to work with local governments. We've got the same recommendation before I went to the audit committee, and they had changed. I think the recommendation from council was to recommend to council to support and continue these services, where they changed it to prior to the decision as to whether to continue delivery of the services, that council consider those risks and mitigations. And I think there's still some mitigation services which the CEO has alluded to that we need to be considerate, because what we've seen, and this is another example of it, is more and more regulatory responsibility and burdens coming onto elected members, because we're told in local government land that elected members are meant to be strategic focused and at a higher strategic level, but more and more there's an operational element. And I think it's difficult to then put up to $46,000 of civil liability on an elected member to have an operational insight onto the delivery of our transport services and our care services that we provide in the different aged care things, whilst also saying that we shouldn't be involved in the operational level. I think this is something that council is going to have to provide, because this is the problem with regional South Australia, is there's not the other providers that council can just hand it out to. Alexandrina was able to get out of this because they got City of Victor Harbor to do it, and we're now fronting all the risks and with it. So I think I'm going to put up a motion around an advocacy approach. I don't think I can support this in its current form. I think there's still some question marks I have around what those risks and mitigations can be. I think ultimately we'll have to continue providing this service and front that risk, but I think we need to be pushing back when we can. And I think we're just going to continue seeing this as local government have to pick up the tab for everyone.
Anyone else would like to speak to the debate?
Councillor Kemp.
Go ahead.
Just a question along the training that the elected members have to take on as a responsible person. Is there enough timeline before the elections for this training to take place? Because to pay for this training and then 2 or 3 weeks later, there's a whole new change of chamber. So the new chamber will have to go through the process again. So I'm just wondering the timelines. Is it under the Act that we have to have done by a certain time?
If I may, through the Deputy Mayor. So when we had our briefing from the Federal Department just recently, while these provisions are required to be in place now, they know that it will take a little bit of time for councils to do the screening and the training, and we are commencing that as soon as possible. So yes, we would look to have that undertaken before the November changeover, so to speak. And then yes, we will need to do it all again with a new council. Those council members who are reappointed wouldn't have to do the screenings again. They usually have a 12-month, sometimes longer period of time, but then new members would.
I think the training will identify the role and responsibilities of a responsible person. Again, I understand where Councillor Mann's coming from, and he has some elements there which are quite good. But I think also that a responsible person is more of a strategic level of that, is ensuring that we have the policies, procedures and everything in place so staff can carry out those services. So I think it's not that onerous for a responsible person to have that responsibility. It's just ensuring, and through the CEO and the staff, that things are done appropriately and accordingly.
Through the Deputy Mayor, absolutely correct. I'm required to have it in place now, so it's actually sharing it with members. It's gone beyond the executive to the elected body now, so it's sharing what's already in place.
Councillor Burns as well, if I could speak to this.
Councillor Burns, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I acknowledge and appreciate the concerns that Councillor Mann has. I had a lot similar. What was unfortunate is that this is now in law and we're now bound to adhere to it. It doesn't mean that we can't do advocacy to try and identify holes and show where there are some potential gaps, but also agree with Councillor Kemp that the proper training mitigates the extent of liability on elected members. I mean, our role is quite small compared to if you're in an aged care service provider. And I understand the intent of the Act, but I think that the time to really lobby was before the Act got passed. But unfortunately, we can only advocate to try and refine it over time.
Anyone else that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Henderson, would you like to close the debate?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I do appreciate Councillor Mann's questions, and I know a lot of those questions are around basically the passing of the buck from higher levels of government down to councils to deal with. And I think we all appreciate that. However, we offer two very important community services here, the Southern Communities Transport Scheme and the Caring Neighbourhood Programme. They are very important to our community. They offer a lot of support to a lot of people. They are both very successful schemes, and we simply can't afford to even consider stepping away from those responsibilities, because there would be nobody to fill the gap for either of those. And as I say, two very important support programs that we offer. In terms of being a responsible person, if our volunteers are happy to do the training and step up and have police clearances to be responsible persons as volunteers, I think it's a very minor thing for council elected members to do the same. I think it should be our responsibility to do that. In a volunteering capacity, I already have police clearance to work with older people, and clearance to also sit on the high school and the primary school governing councils on behalf of the City of Victor Harbor. Not an onerous thing to get those clearances. A lot of the hard work is done by the administrating body, the council or the school, etc. So I don't think it's a huge issue. And I think we should all take on that responsibility of being responsible persons.
Thank you. That's closed the debate. All those in favour? Those against?
It's carried.
That has been carried. Thank you very much.
Councillor Mann.
Yes, Councillor Mann.
Would I be able to move a second motion under that item? Motion without notice.
We'll do it at motions without notice, if you don't
that's
mind.
fine. Thank you.
We're on to committees. So where are we? 13 point. The minutes for the Southern Community Transport Scheme, which is ironic. So do I have a mover?
I'll move that. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
And a seconder.
Councillor Burns.
Anyone like to speak to them? Shouldn't need to unless there's anything important. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Next, we're moving on to the Audit Risk Committee minutes and the summary report, and we're just receiving and noting those. So do I have a mover and a seconder for that?
Councillor Mann.
Thank you.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Would you like to speak to it all?
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
No other debate? If not, we'll close that. And all those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Now we're on to the subsidiaries, and we're up to we're doing the March budget review for the Horse Tram Authority. We're looking to accept that budget review. So do I have a mover for that?
Councillor Mann.
Seconder.
Councillor Henderson.
Would anyone like to speak to it?
Sorry, Councillor, I keep putting my hand up. Are you happy for me to talk?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. It's positive to see the authority's position improve to a break-even outcome, and increase ticket revenue and cost control is also encouraging. However, it's important to recognise that this position is achieved after a significant level of council funding, and the underlying operations still appear to be heavily dependent on that support. There are some ongoing risks, particularly around operational disruptions, and whilst the short-term result is positive, I think it's important that we continue to focus on the long-term financial sustainability and the risk profile of the Tram Authority.
Do we have any other debate? If not, we will close the debate. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. We don't have any matters of urgency this evening. We don't have any questions on notice. Do we have any questions without notice? No, that's great. We've done 18.1 with Councillor Burns's motion earlier in the evening. Do we have any motions without notice?
Councillor Mann.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
please.
My first one in relation to the previous item we were talking about is, and the wording's been provided, to ensure our older regional South Australian residents can continue to access the vital aged care services that many councils provide, including community transport and social inclusion programs. The City of Victor Harbor advocate for local government to be excluded from the onerous requirements of the Aged Care Act 2024 Commonwealth for the delivery of lower level aged care services, and 1, write an advocacy letter to the relevant federal government ministers, B, the member for Mayo, the Honourable Rebecca Sharkey MP, and Senator for South Australia, the Honourable Charlotte Walker, and 2, put an advocacy motion through the South Australian Local Government Association's next general meeting.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Quinton.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mann, do you want to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, no, completely to Councillor Burns's point. I think whilst the majority of the Act, that time has passed because it's in force, but I think that he's completely right. We can be advocating for small changes here and there to make it more effective and to get back to the main purpose that I think it was intended for. I appreciate completely the comments around the chamber, and I really do value these services. I think council will need to continue to provide them because there's not anyone else out there to do it. But I think that the onerous requirements that are going to come on council administration, our volunteers and elected members, I think are so much so, maybe we're not fully grasping some of the extent of what that will look like. I think the amount of councils that have pulled out of the delivery of these services, plus more larger aged care services, I think really demonstrates that there's going to be significant work to be done in this space if we're going to continue to provide it. But I think our only option is to, unless we can advocate for councils who are providing in regional South Australia, who are providing these much needed services for our elderly residents, to be exempt from requirements that really shouldn't have been on us in the first place. And we can go back to how it was, how things were working for a long time, and avoid some of the difficulties that are going to happen and that we've already been identified, and has led a number of councils to already pull out and potentially leave people in a worse off position, because we all know the difference between a council running those services and what a private enterprise would look like, and some of those additional costs that can come from it. So this is an advocacy motion. Again, I think we should be pushing for it because we need to push back when they put more roles and responsibilities on elected members, because I want more people to be wanting to run for council, to be excited to put their hand up and try and get voted in November. And I think that when we're continually asking more and more of councillors, and we're continually putting more risks and now personal fines on them as well, I think it sends the wrong message, and not remunerating them any differently or not providing any other benefits for it to counteract. And I think if we're going to have a healthy democracy that encourages everyone to put up their hand and serve their community, I think we need to be pushing back when there's that overstep, or when they're trying to impose things that shouldn't be imposed. And I think we have a strategic role, and I think what the Act requires is much more of an operating oversight role, much more involved than maybe a strategic high-level role that potentially has been inferred tonight. So I hope you can support this advocacy, and hopefully we can see some results.
Would anyone else like to speak to the debate? And would the mover like to close the debate?
No, thank you.
We'll put that to the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That has been carried. Thank you.
Councillor Burns, I also have a motion without notice.
Could you propose your motion so I can work out?
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My motion is that Council request that future audit and risk committee reports include clearer commentary on how the committee has assessed and satisfied itself that risks, particularly financial risks, have been appropriately evaluated, especially where risks are assessed as low.
I'll decline the motion and ask that you bring it back as a motion on notice, if that's possible, please.
What grounds is that for? Because there's no financial or budget implications.
So through the Deputy Mayor, I just need to clarify that you can actually do it because you have actually got legislation which requires you to have the Audit and Risk Committee, and you've also determined their terms of reference, which states which part of the meeting procedures they follow, which that's why the commentary, the actual attachment is provided to give you that detail. That's what that is for. The actual minutes are purely to record the decisions, not the commentary. It's not a Hansard, and that's what the meeting procedures require. Not saying you can't put your motion on, but I need to clarify whether it's possible or not, rather than putting it before the council now without that information.
And sorry, just for clarification, I was talking about the chairman's report. That's why I said report, not the minutes. It's not clear enough. It's more a summary, and where they're assessing a risk is high, they're usually pretty clear, but where it's low, there's not always enough rationale to understand, because we may actually assess it differently. And if we can understand their points would be helpful. That's all I was asking for.
If it comes back as a motion on notice, will not make any difference to, we don't need that to happen in such a short space of time. So I believe that it's happy for it to come back on a motion on notice so we can get the right information before we commit to that.
Sure.
Councillor Mann.
Yes, Councillor Mann.
If I can move a second motion without notice.
Could you put the motion, please?
Thank you. The motion is, in the next term of council, the City of Victor Harbor invite the councils of Yankalilla and Alexandrina to a joint briefing to revisit the work done in the Faliero Futures Report, and I can go slower, sorry, and explore everything from council cost sharing to potential amalgamation. I can read that. Yeah, perfect. Just maybe that last sentence change from and any future opportunities for shared services to potential amalgamation. Report through and explore everything from. From shared services to potential amalgamation. Yeah, thanks.
Yep, I'll just read it out again. So the motion is, it's moved in the next term of council, the City of Victor Harbor invite Alexandrina and the District Council of Yankalilla to attend a joint briefing session to discuss the Faliero Futures Report and explore everything from shared services to potential amalgamations.
Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for the motion?
Councillor Mackenzie.
Councillor Mann, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, thank you. No, really appreciate Councillor Burns putting up what he did previously, but I think if we're going to have that discussion, I think we need to put everything on the table, not just back of house administration, because I don't see personally how that could effectively work in a way that is beneficial for the whole region. Maybe there is some back of house amalgamation, maybe there's more shared surfaces, maybe there is a potential for working towards amalgamation, but I think these are the things that need to be on the table and as part of those discussions. I don't think, I appreciate Councillor Kemp's comments previously around how we get it done this year, but I think we've got a lot going on at the moment with closing the deal on the rec centre, appointing new CEO and everything else we're trying to do. So I think there's a lot happening over until November or until caretaker, I guess. But I think this is something that would be great for the new council and whoever's on it to revisit and look at how can we better work together. Because I think if you look at the history of things, Victor Harbour has been consistently going to our neighbouring councils and saying, hey, work with us on this, or let's do this thing together. Let's all have the same IT system. And often or not, we've kind of been left on our own to deliver the thing. So it's great that there's an appetite with the other councils. I think because we've been taking the lead in a lot of things and a lot of that joint working, and also the delivery of regional precincts and regional opportunities and facilities, I think we should be the ones driving it. And I hope the new council can explore those options and hopefully find some cost savings that have been alluded to. Thank you.
Councillor Mackenzie, would you like to speak to the debate?
No, nothing more to add. Thanks.
Do we have anyone else that would like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Kemp.
Go ahead.
If my memory serves correctly, I believe the last term of council, this was put up once before about the futures report to be released to elected members for a discussion to see if there's any appetite to progress that report further, and 2 councils voted down that report not to be released because it requires 3 councils to actually approve the process.
The CEO will give you an answer.
So the actual recommendation that it be released to the public, and this council endorsed it be released to the public as long as the other 2 councils did. Yankalilla moved the same motion. They wanted it released to the public as well. That was what happened in 2020. Alexandrina Council chose not, well, actually didn't present the actual item to their chamber and didn't release it. So it is available to all the council members. I've actually shared it with every single term of council that's been here. I have made sure you've had a copy, but it's not been released publicly. That's the only thing. And I think I've mentioned before, and the gentleman that did the deputation, Report 1 is outdated because it was data collected in 16 and 17, but Report 2 is still very relevant because it talks about the different management and governance models that should be explored by this council.
Councillor Burns?
Go ahead, Councillor Burns.
I understand where Councillor Mann's coming from, and I'm not opposed to what he's got up there as a motion. I'm just concerned with the wording. It's directing a new council as opposed to requesting the City of Victor Harbour invite Alexandrina Council. And I think we just need to probably use a slightly different wording, because I don't believe that this council can direct a new council. We can request, but the implication in that is that it is this has to happen.
I'm happy to change my wording slightly to accommodate the point. The city, so if you remove that first section there, so then go, the City of Victor Harbour invite Alexandrina Council and the District Council of Yankalilla to attend a joint session in 2027. Perfect. We can send the invite now and schedule it later if you're happy with that.
I better ask the seconder if they're happy with the changes.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy with that.
Right. Now that we've got the changes, is there anyone else who would like to speak to the motion? If not, would you like to close the debate?
No, thank you.
All those against? That's carried. Thank you. So now we're moving on to confidential items. So the first item we will be moving into confidence.
Deputy Mayor, just a point of order, if I can, relating to Section 90 of the Local Government Act. I just have concerns about agenda item 20.3, and I accept that certain aspects of...
I'll stop you there for a moment. We will get to that motion at the time, and so
I'm talking about going into confidence.
because what happens?
That we're going into confidence.
Yes, and what happens is that we go into confidence, talk to the issue, and we have to do that, come out of confidence for every single item. So we can take that up when we get to that particular item, and if people agree with you, then they will be able to vote on it.
I'm only talking about going into confidence for that item, not the motion or the item to be discussed. What I'm saying is I believe it should be going into confidence.
Yeah, well, we've got an item list here, and we'll stick to the item list. And when we get to that item, if it's deemed to not to go into confidence, then it won't be in confidence.
Okay, can we bring that item forward, please?
All right, I'll bring it forward if you don't mind. Yes, I'll put it to the vote as to whether the elected members wish to bring that forward. Could you show your hands whether you want to bring this forward first? We have 2/3 majority.
Deputy Mayor, do you want me to talk to this?
Yep. So the item 20.3, confidential, reviewed CEO selection panel terms of reference and an indicative recruitment plan is the heading.
Motion is that we go into confidence. So do we have a mover for going into confidence?
Disputing that we go into confidence.
But if that is carried to go into confidence, then that's the equivalent of it being.
There is a point of order that has to be addressed first before.
So Councillor Burns, if I may, through the Mayor, if you don't think it goes into confidence, then you don't support or you debate at the time. So the motion, you either move an alternate motion, or if someone moves and seconders, then you can debate that it not be in confidence and your reasons why. So that's your opportunity. So at the moment, you can't sort of explain and debate something that isn't before the chamber.
I'll move the recommendation, Councillor Henderson.
Do we have a seconder for moving into confidence? Councillor Quinton, there's no debate. Yep. Okay. Councillor Henderson, do you have, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, only to say, I'm not going to speak in length, but only to say I believe this needs to be in confidence.
Councillor Quinton, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thanks.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Burns?
Go ahead.
I accept that certain aspects of CEO recruitment, particularly relating to applications, has to be treated in confidence. However, the Local Government Act makes it clear that confidentiality should only be applied in certain circumstances. My understanding that this particular agenda item relates to terms of reference and the recruitment process rather than discussing any individual applications. On that basis, I question whether it's necessary for this particular agenda item to be conducted in confidence. The CEO appointment is one of the most significant decisions council make, and transparency around the recruitment framework is important for maintaining public confidence in that process. So my question is, can it be clarified what specific information in this particular agenda item requires confidentiality, given that no applicants or personal information is being discussed at this stage, and it's only talking about process?
Direct that to the CEO.
So just again, clarification, you may wish Karen Rokoczynski to answer this, but it's my understanding the council has chosen to use section 98, which is the recruitment process, and the disclosure of this information in regards to the details as to how you intend to undertake your recruitment process, the detail of your indicative timeframes. If you want to disclose that to all your potential candidates and give them all the information of how you intend to go about your recruitment process before you've commenced it, and how your panel intends to undertake each step, I would recommend that's actually disclosing information to potential candidates before you've actually got them.
That recruitment plan be in confidence and the terms of reference not?
That would be a decision you would choose once you've actually discussed the item in confidence. The confidentiality provisions enable the members to have an open and frank discussion around the details and the process, and it's the only way you can actually put those attachments into confidence initially. You can then have your debate and then choose to release the elements you wish to be released from confidence once you actually had your discussion and debate. That's what the provisions are for. You can't actually have, if you chose not to go in confidence, then everything in this report, attachments, are no longer confidential, they're open to the community to seek and see. So the decision that council can choose to go into confidence, retain certain things in confidence, and release certain things from confidence. That's what part 4 or 3 of this recommendation enables you to do. So you need to actually go into confidence before you make that decision as to what's released and what's not. Because currently I've recommended through the recommendations that this should happen. Then you as the chamber make that decision.
Any further commentary to the motion? We will close the debate if the mover has anything to say. Put that to the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried.
Division, please.
For the division, all those in favour, please stand.
Those members in favour are Councillor Mann, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Quinton and Councillor Henderson.
Those against?
And Councillor Kemp, sorry. Those against, Councillor Burns.
That motion has been carried.